Here now again for our monthly checkup for December with our local doctors. We have Sarah Collins-McGowan back with us from URMC and Golisano Children's Hospital. Usually with each of these, we do one theme, but there's so much going on and so much to talk about here this month. So thank you for coming back in.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'll start with this. As we're doing this, it is Thursday morning, so it could change depending on what actually happens with a potential vote here today. What's coming up is hepatitis B and the birth dose. Every once in a while, the CDC and vaccine advisory panel get together and they vote on which vaccines we should get, who, when. So what is important about this, whether what's decided on it or not?
Yeah, so we're expecting they're looking at the birth dose of hepatitis B. So just so everybody kind of, starts with a level playing field here, hepatitis B is a virus that attacks the liver. And sometimes it just causes an acute illness, but in some cases it can go on to be a chronic infection, and that can lead to things like liver failure or cancer. And so one of the things that's important about this virus is that particularly in babies or children, if they get it at a young age, they're much more likely to develop that chronic infection compared with people who get it at an older age. And so one of the ways that we have tried to reduce the number of children that are getting this kind of infection is by starting the hepatitis B vaccine right at birth. And that recommendation has been part of the CDC's recommendation since 1991. And during that time, we've gone from having about 16,000 cases of hepatitis B in infants and children a year to now like less than 20. So it's been very, very successful. And that is, a major reason why we're, hoping to be able to continue that recommendation to keep giving the hepatitis B vaccine at birth.
Another thing that we've been talking about a lot lately is getting into flu season and just hitting us hard. In particular, Monroe County, the number's like up 200% recently. It's way more than any other county. There's no rhyme or reason for it, just that it just happened to get picked up and started spreading here. What are you seeing?
Yeah, we have definitely seen the flu start to increase even over just the last week or two, from an occasional case here and there to lots of people coming in with flu-like symptoms, lots of kids, lots of positive tests. There is not a specific rhyme or reason why Monroe County is being hit harder than others. It is a little bit more of a populous county compared with some of our surrounding areas, so we do tend to spread it a little bit sooner and a little bit faster. But I expect it's going to probably spread from here, statewide, and we're going to start seeing higher numbers all over the place.
What do you tell people? We just had Thanksgiving, so maybe people, a week after that, this may be when something's showing up, but we'll also have more gatherings as well. Your word of advice for this time of year when we're all inside?
Yeah, everyone's always worried about germs this time of year, and largely things are unavoidable, but there are some things that you can do to try to reduce your risk and prevent spread. So the biggest by far for a lot of these respiratory illnesses, including flu, is just lots of hand washing. Carry hand sanitizer on you, get your kids to wash their hands. That's largely how it's spread. So that's a huge a huge thing that you can do to help. You want to avoid being around people who are obviously sick, especially people who have fevers or coughs or things that they could be spreading. If you yourself are sick, you consider wearing a mask to protect others around you. Those are the kinds of things that you can do to try to keep each other safe.
Is RSV an issue yet? Are we into that?
Yes, RSV is starting to pick up as well. That's another one of those seasonal respiratory viruses that we monitor closely and track the number of cases. So we have started seeing cases of RSV. Usually that's, almost the same time frame as flu, tends to start hitting us in the late fall, through the winter time, and then into the early spring. So this is definitely the season for that, and we expect those numbers to go up and continue to get worse.
What are the main differences if you're looking at flu, COVID, or RSV in a child or someone in your house where you could tell this may be what they have?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it can be a little bit hard to tell, but there are some things that help. So starting with RSV, this is a virus that by the time kids are 2, virtually every child has had this. It's pretty unavoidable. It's very ubiquitous. You and I have probably had it many times over. And it tends to cause, cold-like symptoms, especially in older kids or young adults. But in babies, they can get quite sick with this. And that's because this tends to kind of settle into the lungs, into the smaller airways called the bronchioles deep in the lungs. And babies have very tiny ones, very tiny airways. And so it doesn't take very much for them to get into trouble with breathing if they get some inflammation there, if they get some mucus and some things that are blocking their airway there. So for babies, you're going to want to watch carefully for any signs of trouble breathing, if they're breathing heavily or quickly, or coughing a lot, having any trouble feeding because they're breathing. Those would be potential signs of RSV. For flu, one of the hallmarks of flu is that it almost always has fever with it. Tends to cause body aches, headaches, things like that. Cough as well, but usually you are seeing fever with flu, whereas some of the other viruses you don't necessarily. So those are the kinds of things that might clue you in and have you want to call your doctor and get checked out and make sure your kids are okay or you yourself are okay.
What do you tell parents when they're monitoring their children at home? And yes, we have all these apps now. We can message us. Our doctors send a picture. The cutoff of home management versus maybe coming into the office to see if there's something we need to prescribe or test if it may be something else.
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of these, like you mentioned, are just kind of supportive care at home, and as long as kids are doing okay, that's the right way to go. Usually, we would recommend that parents call the office if their kids are having fever longer than a few days and it's not breaking. If it's not breaking with the use of medications, if you're doing ibuprofen or acetaminophen, and still they're having pretty high fevers with that. And then certainly if they're having any kind of breathing distress, if it seems like they're working hard to breathe, they're using a lot of their muscles to kind of breathe in and out. Babies, sometimes we refer to it as belly breathing. You can see their bellies go in and out a lot when they're breathing. So those would be signs that you would want to come in. The other thing would be keeping an eye on how kids are eating and drinking. Sometimes when they're getting very sick or they're not feeling well, they're not taking their bottles or they're not drinking, and then they can get dehydrated pretty quickly. So that would be the other reason, if you're seeing that drop off or you're not seeing as many wet diapers as you normally would, where you would definitely want to call and get checked out.
Finally, in some of our recent shows, I've read multiple stories that all kind of had the same thing. It has to do with whether it's social media influencers or AI. So people from, going back a decade ago, you get online, try to figure out what's wrong with you, and it would be like WebMD, which were like, don't use, reach out to your doctor. But now as you type in anything and Google AI spits something out, or you do it on your phone, or you see someone talking about something online. But how important still is it, just that connection here, like if you were my doctor, or having someone, that family care doctor with that expertise?
Yeah, I think there's just no substitute for, having somebody who knows you, knows your history, knows your family, and also who can see you and examine you in real time to help, make a diagnosis. It's interesting that you bring this up, because I just probably this year recently is the first time I've had people come in talking about AI or putting their symptoms into, an AI source. And I have to say, I'm not impressed yet with AI's ability to accurately diagnose people. So I wouldn't rely on that. I think it's a great way to open a conversation, especially if you're worried about things. We want to know what it is that you're worried about, even if we don't think that's at all what you have, so that we can explain why and reassure you. So I would absolutely, ask your provider about those kinds of things, but I certainly wouldn't rely on it for any kind of diagnosis or, advice.
Hopefully we won't have to, and that'll do it for our monthly checkup. We'll see you in the new year. Happy holidays on that, and hope it's a healthy one for everybody. Thank you again.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.